The Little Match Girl. On a cold New Year's Eve, a poor little girl walked through the dark streets, barefoot and alone. Snowflakes swirled around her, and she shivered as the biting wind cut through her thin, ragged clothes. In one hand, she carried a small bundle of matches, which she had tried to sell all day, but no one had bought a single one. The little girl was afraid to go home. Her father would be angry if she returned without having sold any matches, but she had no money and nothing to bring back. Besides, their home was just as cold as the streets. They had no fire to warm them and only a tattered blanket to share. As she wandered the streets, she passed by houses where warm lights glowed through the windows. Inside, families were celebrating the new year with feasts and laughter. The little girl could smell the delicious aroma of roasted meat and freshly baked bread. She pressed her nose against the window of one house, gazing longingly at the happy family inside. They were gathered around a table, their faces glowing in the warmth of the fire. But she dared not knock on the door or ask for help. No one noticed the little girl outside in the cold. Her feet were blue from the cold, and her little hands were numb. She found a corner between two buildings where she could shelter from the wind, and she huddled down, trying to keep warm. She thought of lighting one of her matches, just to warm her fingers for a moment. Hesitantly, she took out a match and struck it against the wall. The match flared up with a bright, warm light, and the little girl held it close to her face. In the glow of the flame, she imagined herself sitting in front of a big, warm stove. She could feel the heat of the fire, and it was as if she were actually there, warming herself by the stove. But the flame flickered out, and the stove vanished, leaving her alone in the cold once more. Desperate for warmth, she struck another match. This time, she saw herself in a cozy room with a beautiful feast laid out before her. There was roasted goose, steaming hot, with stuffing and gravy. There were cakes, fruits, and sweets of every kind. She reached out her hands to taste the food, but just as she was about to touch it, the match went out, and the feast disappeared. She struck another match, and this time she found herself under a beautiful Christmas tree. The tree was adorned with twinkling lights, ornaments, and candles, more beautiful than any tree she had ever seen. She reached out to touch one of the candles, but as she did, the match burned out, and the tree vanished, leaving only darkness. The little girl lit another match, and in the light, she saw her grandmother, the only person who had ever shown her love. Her grandmother smiled kindly at her, and the little girl felt a surge of joy and comfort. "Grandmother," she cried, "please take me with you. Don't leave me here alone." Afraid of losing her grandmother, she struck all the matches she had left, hoping to keep her there. The light was so bright, it felt like daylight, and her grandmother seemed more real than ever. The little girl reached out and took her grandmother's hand, and together they rose into the sky, far away from the cold, hunger, and pain. They were now in a place where there was no more suffering, only warmth, light, and love. The next morning, as the sun rose on the Christmas day, people found the little girl huddled in the corner, her cheeks rosy and a smile on her face. She was frozen to death, but she looked peaceful. The burnt-out matches lay scattered around her. The townspeople shook their heads and sighed. They could not know what beautiful visions the little girl had seen, or how happy she had been in those final moments. They only saw a poor, cold child who had died alone in the night. But in truth, the little match girl had found a place where she would never be cold or hungry again, a place where she would be loved and cared for, forever. It preserves the story's poignant message about poverty, hope, and the idea that even in the darkest moments, there can be a light that leads to peace. The end. If you like our video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Press the bell icon to get new video updates.